Hello, you wonderful people. So for today's video, I made a list of 10 crime dramas that I really like, that I kind of want to put out there just in case, you know, in case you aren't watching these crime dramas. I believe that you should. Two things I'm also going to note is that one, nothing on this list is in any particular order. And two, these are just straight up crime dramas. What I mean is there's no superhero or science fictional or fantasy or supernatural like aspects to them. They're just pure crime dramas. So first on the list is the NBC show Blindspot. Now, if you don't know what Blindspot is, basically it's this action mystery crime drama that involves like the FBI finding this woman simply referred to as Jane Doe. She has no memories of who she is, and basically she's covered in all these tattoos. These tattoos are, you know, connected to these, you know, things like maybe corruption or some attacks that might end up happening. And so the FBI, you know, she works with the FBI to kind of solve these mysteries of stopping all these terrible things from happening while also figuring out who she is. It's a very awesome show, especially when it comes to like the mystery aspect. They're trying to figure out everything, like who Jane really is and why she has no memory of who she is, as well as like what, you know, who gave her the tattoos. Like there's a grand mystery to it that I think the show does a very great job of handling. The show is still ongoing. It is currently in its 4th season. If you have not seen the show at all, one great place I recommend checking it out is on Hulu, because obviously Hulu has all the episodes, even the more recent episodes from this season. Number 2 on the list is another NBC show, The Blacklist. Essentially in this show, the FBI is working with this well-renowned criminal named Raymond Reddington. Basically, he's been on like the most wanted list from the FBI for like the past 30 years, and he turns himself in, and he's willing to cooperate with the FBI, but only if he's able to talk to one particular person, and it's this, you know, FBI profiler named Elizabeth Keene. And basically they work together to take down these people on this list known as the Blacklist. Basically it's a list of criminals that Reddington himself has compiled. Is basically like criminals that the FBI isn't even aware of that exist, or even criminals that they are aware of that exist that they don't have access to. But him being the criminal and having this criminal empire that he does, he has the connections necessary to kind of bring and point them in the right direction, a lot of these blacklisters. And it's this interesting thing, balance, as the series has progressed, that, you know, Reddington obviously has a lot of his motives, you know, his own reasonings for doing everything. It's like turning himself over to the FBI. Why do that? What's his connection to Liz? Because why would he specifically choose her amongst anybody? And it is this great developing story of trying to find out, you know, what Reddington is up to, a lot of the secrets that he has hidden and stuff like that. It's like, you know, once again, he is a criminal and all, after all, and it's like, do you trust someone like him, you know, when the time comes and stuff like that? And that's a big part of the show, kind of like, you know, lies, secrets, and deception in regard. So it's a really great show. If you have not watched it, there are 2 places you can watch it. Obviously you can watch seasons 1 through 5 on Netflix. I believe it's still on Netflix. And as well as you can also watch it on Hulu. You'd actually be able to watch some more current episodes on Hulu too. So just throwing that out there. Next up on the list is the Cinemax series Benchie, a fantastic show if you've never checked it out. Essentially, kind of give you a little rundown about it. Basically, there's this thief. He was kind of a jewel thief that was locked up for 15 years. He finally gets free, and he's trying to build his life back up. But without really getting into it too much for spoiler reasons and stuff like that, things don't work out the way he does. And, you know, he winds up in this, you know, small town known as Benchie. And when he's about to leave, circumstances go down, which ends up with him impersonating a new sheriff in town, and basically just things unfold from there. Essentially, it's this crazy ride of just kind of him kind of pretending to play lawman while also doing some other criminal stuff at the same time. You know, like I said, like his complicated life complicates the lives of everyone around him. It is kind of interesting because he is this bad guy who does in his own way try to get justice and do the right thing. He just probably doesn't go about it the most, you know, protagonist hero type of way. But still, it's a fantastic show. It gets quite a bit of action. I will forewarn you ahead of time, the show can get quite bloody. But it is a complete show. I believe you can catch all 4 seasons of it on Prime. I remember coming across it before. I think it's still up there, but I could be wrong. Next up on the list is the Showtime series Dexter. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this, basically Dexter is, I forgot what his job is specifically. He's like a forensic scientist for the police, but basically that's his day job. His other side job is being a killer. Basically, he's always had this little bit of darkness in him ever since he was a kid, and so his, you know, foster father, you know, who just kind of became outright his father, basically gave him an outlet for his darkness and basically taught him to basically kill, but kill only bad people. You know, people who might have slipped through the cracks, slipped through the system, and you see him kind of balancing that, trying to be like a normal person, especially when it comes to work, but also having this dark side of himself that he's keeping from people. And so it's an interesting series of like I said, seeing him kind of trying to balance it, like even trying to become more normal in a certain regard. The show is complete. I do believe it is 6 seasons. I think you can find all of it on Netflix still. Next up on the list is the AMC series Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad essentially follows Walter White, this man who found out he has cancer. He's like a science teacher, and, you know, wanting to do something for his family because he keeps this from them. The fact is that he has cancer, and, you know, he wants to leave a legacy behind, you know, make sure that his family's taken care of when he's gone. So he decides to cook crystal meth. Yeah. And that ends up turning into this whole thing of him, you know, it started off like, oh, I did it for my family, but as the series progresses, it becomes more and more about the fact is of like, he just loves the money and power and just trying to justify a lot of the stuff that he does. It's a very interesting take of just kind of like following someone who was kind of like the hero. You kind of rooted for them to a certain point, but then you kind of go, I don't really side with him about a lot of decisions he's made. I mean, some people do, like, that's what it is at the end of the day, because some people are like, oh, like I still want him to get away with everything and stuff like that. Whether he does or doesn't, you have to watch the show and find out. But it is a great show. I believe all 5 seasons are on Netflix. Next up is the Netflix original series Ozark. Now, basically, you have this dude, Marty, who had basically been laundering money for the cartel. Well, things get problematic when money goes missing, and it's basically up to Marty to basically find a new way to launder money for them. So he goes to this place named the Ozark, and he's trying to come up with this plan. It's got his entire family involved in it, which includes his wife and his 2 kids, and just it's always, as I kind of described the show, it's always interesting to find out what Marty does next to try and squirm his way out of these bad situations, because things always go from bad to worse, and, you know, Marty always has to find and think of a way out of it, and he's pretty good at it, but it's just always one thing after another, and it's just a great show. Now it's kind of a perfect time to get into it. Obviously, currently 2 seasons are out, but the show is coming back for a 3rd season. Next up on the list is the USA original series Psych. This is a, you know, comedy crime drama. It focuses very heavily on the more comedy side of things, but it does have its dramatic side as well. But basically it follows this mainly Sean Spencer. He's this dude who is very observant. It's a skill that his dad, who was a police officer, taught him and kind of honed, and basically he's able to notice things that maybe not a lot of people were able to notice, and basically he puts those together. But rather than kind of using that skill and saying like, oh, this is how I do things, he pretends to be a psychic. He works with like his longtime best friend Gus, and basically, like I said, it's a comedy crime drama where a lot of shenanigans happen. It is about solving crimes and stuff like that, but at the same time they kind of have a lot of fun with it. So I mean, I recommend, like, if you're looking for, you know, kind of something more on the procedural side of things, but also with like a heavy comedy side to it, like Psych is the perfect show. It's a fantastic show in general. Just everything that goes down within the show, the characters and their connections and stuff, like, just makes the show fantastic. I'm actually not really sure if there's any streaming sites you can find Psych on. I know for a while it was on Netflix, but I'm pretty sure it's not up there anymore. So next up on the list is the TNT original series Leverage. Now, Leverage does a very interesting thing. Basically, it's about a group of bad guys who basically try to do good for people. Essentially, like people who have issues, this team comes together of bad guys that kind of trick these other bad people into, you know, revealing something, kind of giving people leverage to kind of get back what, you know, was either taken from them or stolen from them. It's basically the entire show follows a group of bad guys. You know, a quote of the show is like, bad guys make the best good guys, essentially, because they know how bad guys think, and they know how to kind of, you know, like, it's a team of a hacker, a thief, a grifter, a mastermind, and kind of a hitman. Not in the sense of like, oh, like he kills people, more like, no, he's kind of the brawler of the team. So it's just like all of them put together makes this great team. It's a great show because it blends a lot of stuff. You know, it blends like the action, the drama, and the comedy. It's not like a full-on comedy show, but it does have like its comedy moments in between like some of the stuff that goes down, and just it's actually really cool to kind of, like I said, get that different perspective of like you're following a group of bad guys doing good stuff. So I think it kind of does a very good job of kind of giving you that different viewpoint essentially. So I'm not sure if the show is still on Netflix. It was for a while, but that was a while ago, so I don't know if that's still the case. And next up is the CBS original series Person of Interest. Now I'll go ahead and note this, that I think this show technically with some of its nature falls under the category of science fiction, but for me I've always just looked at it as like a crime drama, but that's here nor there. But essentially it follows this group, this dude named Harold basically built this system, this machine that basically is able to kind of like lock into a lot of like security cameras and stuff like that. It gathers up a whole bunch of intel that basically the government uses for more high priority targets, but the show focuses on these more local issues. Like there are relevant targets and those that aren't relevant. It's been a while, so I forgot the term that they actually use, and basically it focuses on this team that includes, you know, Harold himself, also with a guy named Reese. I had to pause for a second because it's been a while, so a lot of stuff it's blanket, but basically they kind of act outside of the law to try and help people because these people are considered irrelevant by the machine, so a lot of the government won't go out of their way to help them because it's like, oh, we're more focused on the bigger picture rather than smaller picture. But obviously like it turns into this whole thing because a smaller picture can grow into something much more. You learn that as the series progresses, more allies and enemies pop up as the series shows up. It's a fantastic show, really worth your time, especially because it's like it has this procedural aspect to it, but it does have this overarching story that's always growing and stuff like that, and it's just really worth your time. The show's like 5 seasons long. I believe it might still be on Netflix. It was for a while, but I don't know if that's still the case now. And finally on my list is the CBS original series The Mentalist. The Mentalist is another kind of procedural show. Essentially it follows Patrick Jane, this guy who was like a TV psychic. Essentially he pissed off this serial killer named Red John, and ultimately Red John didn't pay him back, ended up killing Patrick Jane's wife and daughter. And so basically now he works with the cops, you know, not only is to help them with their case by case basis, but it's also about tracking down and getting revenge against the man who destroyed his life essentially. It's just very, like I said, it's so interesting because it is, like I said, it is this police procedural aspect to it, but it's also like this overarching story of like him tracking down this serial killer, and it's obviously because it's such a personal story for him. And it's also interesting because like the reason why it's called The Mentalist is because he is a fake psychic, even he acknowledged it, but he's very good at picking up stuff and kind of tricking people, and that kind of becomes like part of his whole like how he goes about helping the police solve cases and stuff like that. It's a very great show. I'm actually not sure if there's any streaming services you might be able to find this on. So, and like I said, that brings the end of my list. This is far from the only crime dramas I watch, but I chose these 10 in particular just for this particular video. I'll probably do more in the future. So let me know in the comments down below if you've actually ever watched any of these shows, like which ones are shows you're familiar with, which ones aren't you, which ones have you checked out, which ones you haven't. Has my list inspired you to check out things that you haven't checked out? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. Really, that's all I wanted to talk about in this video. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good